Hello again. I have a whiteboard here to explain the very basics of poetry to you. Prose is stories, book reviews, novels. Prose is sentences filling a page. Poetry, however, does not have sentences. What poetry has is called the line. When you end a sentence in prose, you have a period. But in poetry, you have the line break. That's where, depending upon your heartbeat, your breath, your need for a pause or a rest, you break the line and continue it. In computer use, it's called wraparound. Continue it on the next line. In prose, you have a paragraph, which is a group of sentences focusing on a certain thought, topic. In poetry, you have stanza, and that's a lovely word because stanza is from the Italian, and it means little stopping place, little room. So that helps my imagination think about a poem as a house, and there are so many rooms in the house, and every one I enter, I find something new and surprising, a hidden source of light, a delicious fragrance that takes me back to when I was 4 years old, looking through my aunt's purse and finding the smell of juicy fruit, hairspray, and violets. The sense of smell is next to the part of the brain that controls memory. So smell makes you remember things. Also, with memory, generally, if there's emotions accompanying those memories, it makes it stick. When I ask students to write about a memory, they write about the first time they got stitches, lost a tooth, got a brother or sister, got a pet, fell off a truck, got bit by a dog, had a flood. Because those kind of experiences are so memorable. Also, I ask them to write about, what did the hospital smell like? When you got the shot, did you have a taste in your mouth? And then these sensory details fill it in. I'm also going to add some vocabulary for you. With my students, I give them a manila envelope called a portfolio. They keep their poems inside, and then they write these vocabulary words inside this list. And then the next word, anonymous. The Greek word for name is onoma. When you put an an in front of something, like anaerobic, which means without oxygen, the an means without. So anonymous means without a name. And I use this because when students aren't quite ready to get up and perform their work out loud to their peers, I have an anonymous pile. I collect the poems, I read them. I don't look at the student, I don't say their name, I don't point at them, so they keep their privacy. But midway through the year, it's time to bring out the poetry muscles of courage and get up there and perform your work. There was a poll taken in America asking adults, what are you afraid of? I immediately would say the skunk at the wood pile that's waiting, the guy in the ski mask robbing a bank, somebody peeping in the window. But most American adults do not worry about those things. What they fear most is speaking before a group. So, when you're writing your poetry in class and you come up and you read it to everyone, you are in the top 1% of all Americans for courage. So that's a good thing to remember, good thing to practice. Because courage is a muscle. You have to use it. The next word is metaphor. A metaphor is a comparison, and a metaphor, for example, it makes a sentence more interesting, a line of poetry more interesting. So notice the difference here. I could say, when I woke up today, my hair was a mess, which is not so much, but you also can use metaphor and say, when I woke up this morning, I was wearing a rat's nest on my head. Now, isn't that so much more powerful and memorable? Metaphor is used by poets and writers so much. It's one of the most important tools in our toolbox. Another example of metaphor, and I'll give you the boring sentence and then the metaphorical sentence, is when my dad was angry, his eyebrows got dark and a vein stuck out. But using metaphor, I can say, when my father got angry, his whole head became a thunderstorm. And again, it's more interesting and more fun and more visual. Metaphor, comparing two different things to highlight what they have in common. There are many poems by Pablo Neruda that use metaphor, and in one he's talking about a pair of wool socks knit by hand for him by his friend of twilight and goat skin. And that's another great metaphor. Simile. I remember simile because I think of similar. With a simile, you use the words like or as. With a simile, you could say, my husband's heart is as big as the state of Montana. Or, my puppy's teeth are as sharp as individual razor blades. Simile. The only difference between simile and metaphor, both of them being comparisons, is that simile uses like or as, and metaphor just comes straight out and says it. I was wearing a rat's nest on my head. Humor is important in poetry. There's a place in poetry for you to tell the funny things that have happened to you and that you know about. And not only can you have mystery, imagination, humor, but let's go back to mystery. Life is mysterious, and poetry carries a certain mystery with it, because it doesn't always just come out and tell you the whole story in many words. Instead, it distills it down to the fewest words you need to get the image across. Now, image is part of the word imagination. Image is a picture in your head. And when you write poetry, you want to present very strong images that are memorable. And the work of the reader of poetry or the listener of poetry is to make those images happen in their own mind. So sometimes you're a partner with the poet because the poet creates the image, but it's up to your mind to create the vision that you see. And each one will be different. If I say a small pony, every one of you has a different image in your mind of that pony. Mine has wings and likes to eat apples. And the image that you get across, you want to be vivid, powerful, and real. A large part of the way that you do that is by using details. Details are very important because the small details of your life are unique to you. No one else has them. No one else has the same memory of the smell of their grandmother's kitchen. No one else has the same memory of getting a puppy and getting knocked down by it, or playing with it and getting bit by those little milk teeth. So images are essential. Details, use of the senses, all of these things contribute to a great poem, along with imaginative language. And we'll talk about that at the next podcast. So, thank you, be well, take care, and so long.